Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are today. Thank you so much for joining us for this exciting briefing. Today we are absolutely over the moon to be introducing our latest application, the latest part of the Red Sift Pulse platform, and that is Red Sift Radar. For those that don't know me already, my name is Billy McDiarmid. I'm the Senior Director of Sales Engineering here at Red Sift. I am absolutely delighted to be joined today by two esteemed hosts. First of all, Zachary Bennett. Zachary, could you just take a minute to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hey, my name is Zachary. I am an IT security manager at a small to medium medical device company named FHC.
Thank you so much, Zachary. And also delighted to be joined by my colleague and, of course, my boss and my friend, Rahul Powar. Rahul, would you mind taking a minute to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. Thanks, Billy. And welcome everyone to our briefing on Red Sift Radar. I'm CEO and co-founder of the business. I may have met some of you in the past. I hope to meet more of you in the future. Really excited to have you join us for this 60 minutes. I hope you'll find it informative. We've been working on this. I've personally been working on this for a long time, so I'm really excited to share what we've got and hopefully have this be the start of the next piece of functionality that Red Sift can offer you.
Wonderful. And thank you both very much. And again, thank you particularly to Zachary for joining us today. We love having a user. We love having customers to join us for these sessions because it really helps us to tell the story of what we do and how we help our customers every single day. I'd like to just start off with a brief introduction to Red Sift, to the business, for those who don't know it. We are a global cybersecurity organisation. More than 1,000 security teams across the world trust us to solve their security challenges. Some of the biggest names in the world, including Cisco, Rakuten, Domino's, TUI, and ITV, amongst our customers. And our mission is simple and threefold. First of all, we want to democratise cybersecurity by making it available to all companies and everyone within those companies. We want to allow people with all levels of experience in cybersecurity to use our software without having to pay for consultants. We want to make cybersecurity easy. And we want to provide a simplified platform that shares inventory, shares insight, and shares data continuously and automatically across all of our applications to help with use cases and with workflows. So do take a look at our website, familiarise yourself with us, and you'll find out more about our customers and the different things we do on redsift.com. But this is really exciting. I know Rahul said he's been working on this for a long time. I've been excited about this product for a long time as well. This is the most exciting day, I think, since I've been working with Red Sift in the past 4 years that I've been with Red Sift and with Hardenized. Red Sift has used LLM capabilities in its applications for a number of years, and Rahul's going to talk a little bit more about our journey to this point and how we've reached the point where we've been able to release a product dedicated and using it in a little bit more detail later on. But it's been an interesting journey as well, because in the main, it's only recently that the use of LLM has entered the mainstream because of public access to generative AI tooling such as ChatGPT by OpenAI, Gemini by Google, Microsoft Copilot, Apple Intelligence, well, whenever Apple Intelligence decide to finally release it instead of vaporware. But for us to be able to finally come out and productize something that we've been working on for a long, long time is so so exciting. So today we're going to work through our journey to this moment. We're going to talk about Zachary's experience with our beta and how he found success using Red Sift Radar. We're going to talk about the differences between Radar and traditional LLM. And we're going to stress throughout this and talk more about this, how it aligns with our mission, how we're going to push Radar to continue to make cybersecurity accessible to all. We're going to show how to make cybersecurity usable by anyone with any level of experience within an organization, and how it will continue to be integrated with the Red Sift platform. And even more excitingly for me, I'll be doing a live demo of Radar. So keep your fingers crossed for me that the live demo goes well. It's always exciting when I actually do that. So, look, what is Radar? Let's start off by talking about Red Sift Radar. Red Sift Radar is the skilled up LLM assistant that saves you and your security teams hours of time by embedding deep domain specific intelligence into your workflows. It's surfaced through an intuitive chat interface that talks in natural language like we do to each other, as well as using in-app interactions across the Red Sift portfolio of applications. Red Sift Radar identifies and diagnoses security issues across your public-facing estate, emails, domains, a number of different internet-facing assets, embedding insights directly into your existing workflows. And I know Zachary was particularly excited about that, so we'll talk more about that in a moment. Red Sift Radar integrates internet-scale cybersecurity intelligence from the Red Sift team, and Rahul is going to talk a bit about how we do that later. And we use that to give you and your team the skills of a security analyst without having to actually hire another security analyst. This means that you and your team can resolve security issues 10 times faster. It means that you can continuously and automatically improve your security posture. And it means that you can bridge the cyber skill gap all within the Red Sift Pulse single pane of glass. I'd like to introduce Zachary in a bit more detail at this point. Zachary, just to bring you in, could you tell me a bit more about how you got involved in the Red Sift Radar beta and why it was of interest to you?
Initially, I was not I was a skeptic of generative AI until one of your guys' engineers named Faisal actually reached out and said that he believes that I could see a really good use case with your guys' tool. He kind of convinced me that it wasn't kind of like other generative AI tools, and it was very specific to security tooling, especially around something that I was looking for, which was better email security with a better email security posture as well. I changed my mind pretty quickly. This tool overall has actually kind of made me a believer in specified tools using generative AI and LLMs to be able to do some of the security work.
Was there a particular turning point when you started to use Red Sift Radar that turned you away from being a skeptic? Because that is totally understandable, and it's something that, when we're talking to prospects and we've been talking to early beta users, first of all, they go, oh, right, okay, is it for me or not? They start to ask questions. So what was the moment you realised that actually, yes, this is a solution that I think I can use to speed up how I identify and triage security problems?
So we had already started using on DMARC, but Radar directly integrated with on DMARC and allowed us to search for some things within our existing platform that allowed us to see trends, allowed us to look up IP addresses, and kind of replace the need for alternate tools for me. So instead of having a bunch of browser tabs open with MX Toolbox and DNS checkers and certificate checkers that you basically go to the browser to see or use a different tool for, it was all within one application. And, when you look at that, first off, I don't know about other people, but my security team is not ginormous. We all have a lot of different jobs here, and having everything in one place without having to move between different tools means you have extra time to do the other tasks. So the integration is definitely a huge selling point for this tool. It's replaced the MX Toolbox, the DNS checkers, because it's already all in one pane right on the side of Red Sift.
So it's got away from all those open Chrome tabs or Firefox tabs that we know our customers typically use. We see the screenshots that our customers send across. We know how many different tools that they use when they're doing their jobs to be done on a daily basis. So, and how do you think you're used to replace those typical jobs to be done, the things that you do on a day-to-day basis? But did you find it also helped you to do new things that you hadn't thought of before, or do you think it helped you to understand more about the checks that you were actually doing?
Yeah, so a lot of email security for me was like touch and go. I feel like you either love email security or you just don't ever want to touch it. And for me, it had a lot of capabilities that I didn't honestly think were possible in the beginning. With Radar, you're able to basically send it an email. I don't know if you guys are going to talk about this later, but it's a really cool feature that I actually have used more than just to test it out. And it will give you the header information. And instead of having to go into Outlook, which I know everyone loves, and look at the header information that Microsoft gives you, Radar will basically tell you all the information you need to know. Where is it sending from? What's its location? What rules is it using? And all of that is splayed out nicely. I mean, if you want to turn a LLM skeptic into a believer, give them a tool that is human readable, like this portion of Radar is. I mean, I like to think that I use Radar within the confines of email security, but that's not all it does either. So it's overall has been a huge asset to both email security as well as domain security, as well as understanding if my SPF records are correct, if my rules are right. Like, it's an all-in-one tool, and you don't have to see any of the fluff if you don't want to.
And we're going to come on to that in a little bit. And what we're also going to come on to, though, is how Radar, within the first 24 hours of you working with the beta, saved you $4,000 by identifying a fraudulent invoice. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But how did you, just before I move on, how did you find Radar compared to other tools like, the mainstream Gen AI products? If you were using, ChatGPT, for example, or if you were using Gemini, did it compare favorably to those?
So I do see some similarities between Radar and ChatGPT. The differences that I see, though, are Radar is very specific in its use case. Now, if you get out of what its specific use case is, then you do start to see some similarities with ChatGPT. And from my understanding, that's what it's supposed to do. But it's faster than Copilot. It's faster than Gemini and gives better answers. And when you really need to leverage it, it does use an underlying GPT, which is great because, sometimes it can't answer everything that you need. Sometimes the questions are outside of the scope of the product, and it's faster than all three of those, in my opinion, because you're not rate limited. It's a product that you are using and paying for, and it allows you to directly integrate with what you're doing. So it gives you better information, it does it faster, and it just seems more efficient.
So not only is the quality of the info or getting to quality information faster because of the more specific checks, but how you actually use the tool is much faster as well. So that all helps with that improved efficiency that I mentioned, that 10x at the beginning, how much more quickly we can help you identify and triage any potential misconfigurations or risks within the estate.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned it. It is integrated into the full Red Sift product. So you can get little boxes that you guys might touch on this later that kind of allow you to use different features of Radar without moving away from the task that you're in the middle of. And that's like, you don't have to switch.
And you've mentioned one of my favourite bits of the tool, and I'm going to come on to that a bit later. But and that takes us nicely on to when we're talking about the differences between Radar and other platforms that are currently available. It takes us nicely on to talking about existing LLMs and how we overcome their limitations. And for that, I'm going to hand over to Rahul. So Rahul, just to kick us off, do you want to tell us a bit about our journey to today, to the 2nd of October 2024?
Yeah, thanks, Billy. Yeah, it's been a journey, as you can see on this timeline. So if you can cast your mind back all the way to July 2020, that's actually the first time that we got to see an LLM for real in action. We got super early beta access to the GPT-3 playground. And you type some text into it, and it's a continuation engine, and it sort of produces some stuff. And like, wow, I've never seen a piece of technology like this. What is it good for? I think that was probably our initial reaction. But that then allowed us to start to ideate and said, okay, in our swim lanes, we care about making cybersecurity accessible, actionable, simplified where possible, while of course knowing that every single one of our customers potentially has a very bespoke configuration, can have some very bespoke complexity. The protocols that we deal with, not everyone really understands them as well as they could. And so how do we use this technology to try and make things more accessible? And so we started running a number of experiments, and I think Radar is effectively about 4 years worth of experimentation, which finally get us to what we feel is a great value add product to the problems that we care about. The first thing we actually did was a really sort of very narrow use case around GPTs, where our digital risk protection brand trust, we built some small features in there that helped our customers onboard more effectively on there, using GPT to understand nuances and patterns and uncover and categorize some assets in a very specific way. We learned a lot about what it's good at and what it's not good at as a process of building this feature out. And then finally in July, so a little bit over a year ago, we prototyped our first Red Sift Radar, what became Red Sift Radar, as a plugin sitting in OpenAI's GPT-4 store. So a lot of the similarities that you'd see both in the way we chose to build the interactions are driven from where we started from. And that really opened our minds to what we could start to do if we just took this tool that's really good at creative writing, but started to give it real data and real capability that allowed it to go out and sense the real internet, go out and understand all of these very, very specific signals, and started to realize that there's some real challenges in getting it to kind of work effectively. But I'll come back to it later. We opened up some additional features on GPT that were sort of exhaust from what we'd learned from Radar, to say, how can we use it to take natural language and maybe try and make people's investigation journeys or actually filtering data more effective. And then, of course, in Feb, we brought Radar into our platform because we weren't convinced that having a Red Sift Radar plugin sitting out in OpenAI's store was a great experience, both from a security and integration standpoint. And we didn't think it really worked particularly well in the public chat GPT interface. So we realized and we decided that we had to bring a lot of this much closer to us to give us the kind of experience that we felt would be useful and effective. And at the same time, make sure that all the data that was actually going to end up in Radar was secure and safe and in the sandboxes that we were comfortable with. Also, it helps solve another problem, which I think Zach had touched on, which is how do you actually integrate these things? It's great having a thing off on the side that you can do some stuff with, but if it's not there at your point of need all the time, it becomes a lot less useful. And you can start to see that in a lot of products, this is becoming the main challenge that people are working to solve. So, whether it's Apple Intelligence integrated into your phone or Gemini right in Google Workspace, like bringing that AI to where your problem actually is one of the big unlocks in how this could work. We had a whole bunch of users actually jump in on our beta when we first put it out there, and we learned a lot about what we can do better over that period of time. So now we're really excited to launch it to the rest of you. So October 2024. But how do we get here? So one of the things that we obviously know, and it's pretty common knowledge now, is that they're really good at capturing nuanced patterns and generating human-like text. And a wide range of other language-related tasks, proofread, translate, summarize, those sorts of things. That's sort of really where the strength of an LLM actually is. But there are a number of issues that are very specific to the kinds of problems that we want to solve that we had to find solutions for. So what are the sorts of things that LLMs really struggle with and that matter to us? One of the first problems is what we just touched on, which is that they're isolated. In the way that most of us consume the data, we get to a place where the LLM sits on the side and you go there and you find it very hard to figure out what sort of question you want to ask it. You have a blank sheet of paper and you say, I've got a whole bunch of problems, but how do I actually tell it to solve a particular problem? So when we got to it, we realized that actually integrating it and creating these jumping off points in our application where users might have reasonably complicated questions that Radar could help with, and making that an easy journey was probably one of our big UX fixes to try and help make Radar much more integrated with the problems that users are trying to solve. The second problem that we had was that LLM is sort of a brain in the box. It can do some really amazing stuff quite creatively, but it can't really go out on the internet and sense real data. Back for the early users of ChatGPT, you kept getting that cutoff date saying, I don't know anything about the world after this particular date. So whatever question you're asking me, I can't really help you with. That's gotten a lot better over time as more and more integrations have been built. But for us, it's incredibly clear that the most valuable thing that we could do with an LLM is actually expose it to all the data and tools that we already have in the Red Sift platform. So we went out of our way to make sure that almost every source of public data or tooling that could be used to investigate a particular situation that's happening on the internet right now, all the way from the standard stuff, the digs and the OpenSSL tooling, along with all of our proprietary data and tooling, ability to rasterize web pages, the ability to sense certain internet-facing assets from different points of presence around the world. There's lots of stuff that Radar can do, which is really, really powerful and actually very difficult to do if you just had a terminal, or if you just had MX Toolbox or something else that's out there. So we started to build all of these pipings and integrations into Red Sift Radar, which means it has a really wide bench of capability that it can draw on at any point in time. The third problem is that they're really creative, but that's not hugely helpful if you just want to get the same consistent results. If you want to go out there and you want to evaluate the security posture of a domain, you want to analyze an email header, there are a whole bunch of things you just wanted to do all the time and not forget about doing every now and then. So how do you get that consistency so that you can rely on it to do a pretty good job? Obviously, you don't want to constrain it, because based on what it finds, it needs to be able to understand, analyze, maybe offer a couple of different options. But you do want it to cover the basics. And this is traditionally a very difficult thing to do. So we built a proprietary solution that works behind the scenes, and it works particularly effectively because of the way we've integrated the LLMs. But what it essentially does is essentially allows us to build guardrails for what are effectively common workflows. And we call them playbooks. As an end user, you wouldn't necessarily see them, but we build and maintain these playbooks underneath based on user interaction. And we figure out what kind of problems do we want the LLM to be able to solve reliably, and what does reliable mean in this particular instance. And we effectively use this guardrail setting to allow the LLM to think through these complex multi-step cybersecurity analysis functions in a consistent and predictable way. So that makes it a lot more reliable than anything else you might just, end up throwing out into an average LLM. So you combine all of these things. It's integrated at the point that you need it. It has capability that allows it to go out and really sense data and understand it in a real-time way based on all the tools that we expose to it. And it knows how to do that in a consistent and repeatable way. The combination of those things actually make it incredibly useful in places that you would not have expected it to be. So that's, to some extent, the secret sauce of how Radar ends up feeling a little bit different to everything else that's out there. But of course, what everyone probably really wants to see at this point in time is a real demo of it doing something useful and interesting. So, Billy, can I hand back to you to share that with our listeners?
Thank you very much for that. And yeah, it's always interesting to compare and contrast our journey and how, as I mentioned earlier, we're in a world where they're now seen as mainstream, because the reality is to businesses like Red Sift is that we're now very familiar with LLMs and with the tooling. We've been using them for a number of years. So always great to hear the story. I am going to now move over to my demo. It's a two-step process. So fingers crossed that we move over correctly. Okay, there we go. And hopefully everyone can see my screen. It's telling me that you can now see the Red Sift on DMARC dashboard. And I start here because, like I mentioned to Zachary earlier, one of my favorite features of Red Sift Radar is that it is integrated into the existing on DMARC workflows. You don't have to leave on DMARC to actually benefit from the tool, speed up your remediation, and speed up the process of actually fixing these misconfigurations. Okay, this will help you fix problems more quickly, but importantly, and this has always been a huge strength of Red Sift and on DMARC, is it will help customers to get to compliance, to get to reject much more quickly than we already do, and we are already the market leader at doing that. And for customers who are at reject already, it will be far more helpful at ensuring customers stay there by alerting them to any problems that may actually come up and help them to fix it much more quickly. So it boosts efficiency by finding out the answers to questions, integrated and using what we know and what we can see about your data, rather than working from dummy dashboards or dummy data or answers from Google or answers from Stack Overflow or results from all those third-party tools that we've been talking about. It provides you with these answers, these solutions that are accurate, that are validated, and importantly, learned from the on DMARC experts inside the Red Sift team. So Zachary mentioned people like Faisal earlier on. It's taking the knowledge of people like Faisal, Rahul, and other members of the team and making it available to our wider customer. Let's start the demo. So first of all, if I go from my dashboard, firstly, on DMARC's always been excellent at actually flagging up misconfigurations in sending domains that have already been added. You can see here on the dashboard, we use our red, amber, green system to tell you about any misconfigurations that you need to look at. So for example, I've got my domain, molly.scott here. It's at reject at the moment, but on DMARC is telling me, hey, you've got a misconfiguration, you've got an error with your SPF. If I wanted to find out more about that within on DMARC, then I simply click on details. Okay, I can then scroll down to the SPF section, and it tells me that there is an SPF error. but perhaps at first glance, I don't quite understand what the error is, okay? Maybe I don't really know, so it looks like there's a wrong syntax, but maybe I can't quite see what is going on there. But wonderfully, I've got the magical radar button at the right-hand side of the screen. And you will see this through on DMARC. Anywhere where the radar button is shown, Red Sift Radar is going to be available to help you figure out what the problem actually is. I click on Red Sift Radar, it tells me what questions are available. So how can I help? And then I click on help me fix my SPF error. Red Sift Radar is now going to open up the assistant interface. You can see here at the top, it's automatically populating the question, try fixing the problems for the SPF of domain molly.scot. You can see Rahul spoke about those playbooks, okay? You can see here the playbook that we're using. It's the sender policy framework fixer, so very transparent, explains exactly what we're doing. It rings through the raw record. It then inspects the record, and you can see, yep, there's a typo in the mechanism name. It says include, which should be include. SPF errors in the DNS are so common, they're so easy to miss because we're human. We read words the way our brain wants us to read them rather than the way they actually should be, okay? So these are things that are easily missed and easy to now find quickly with Red Sift Radar. But importantly, it doesn't just suggest the correct SPF record. Actually, Radar will go and validate the record just to make sure that it's actually correct. So you can see it's been successfully validated, okay? It's explaining that the record is now correct, okay? It's giving me some further information here just because of the data. It may not, it's a soft fail, so may not fully authorize all legitimate sending sources, but what I was trying to achieve here is I'm trying to fix the SPF misconfiguration. It tells me again what the fixed SPF record is, and then it tells me what to do next. So now I need to take that record and put it into the DNS records for the domain. So that's the first use case that's fully integrated into on DMARC. The second use case is within DMARC reports. Red Sift on DMARC is absolutely superb and market leading. It's surfacing information that customers need to know about sending sources. So where is email actually coming from? But as you know, sometimes you don't know the host name that mail is being sent from because it can't be resolved, and the only information that's available is the IP address. But again, against the same domain, molly.scot, if I scroll down, I can see the sending sources. In this case, I can see that there are actually 3 IP addresses where mail is being sent from that domain. Now, typically, Zachary mentioned this earlier, typically there's a multi-step process required to actually go and find out what that IP address is if you don't familiarize it. And let's face it, who knows all the IP addresses that are within the net blocks that are used by their organizations? So you're not going to be able to recognize that. There might be multi-steps required to identify what that IP address actually is. But because the IP address is highlighted with Radar, I know that I can hover over it. In this occasion, there's 2 questions that are available that Radar can help answer. First of all, can I trust this IP address? And second, where is this IP address located? So I am going to go, can I trust this IP address? Again, the chat interface opens. You can see the question that's being asked. Inspect the legitimacy of 203.162.81.187. Zachary, I know you were a particular fan of Deep Inspect, and what was one of your favourite use cases when we spoke last week. And you can see the steps that it's following. So we're doing an IP inspection, we're showing the location, we're doing an analysis on it, showing the PTR, the block list status, the provider information. We then do a port scan, so we show the results of the scan against those common ports. Okay, we even check if there's any honeypot information found. We give observation history. We give DMARC activity if it was available. We show where the IP address is located. So this is just so much information that I don't know how many different checks you would need to do, 5 or 6 different tools perhaps, different checks to actually find out if this IP address is actually safe or not. So again, just replacing all of those different manual checks, manual tools. Some are free, maybe unreliable, maybe using cached data, all from the OnDMARC interface. And the third use case that's integrated into OnDMARC is also related to reporting. In this case, it's with forensics. So again, for my molly.scott domain, like I would typically do within OnDMARC, I can actually see my forensic reports. I can click through onto the report and it gives me information. OnDMARC is so strong, it's surfacing the information that you need to know from that raw data to try and figure out why an email being sent is actually failing. But sometimes it may not be immediately obvious. Sometimes you may not have the skills required to actually interpret a forensics report. Again, ties back to our mission. We want to make this information and this analysis available to all. But I have my radar button, okay? I can click on it. It tells me the questions that are available. Was the sender a spoofer or a forwarder? And why did DMARC fail for this email? In exactly the same way, I can click through, I can ask the question, and it's now going to tell me, based on that report, why exactly DMARC failed, okay, for that email. This is all integrated into the OnDMARC single pane of glass. But, wonderfully, it's not just about OnDMARC. It's not just integrated into the OnDMARC platform, because what you can see here on the right-hand side is I have got my radar button. It doesn't matter what Red Sift application you're actually using. I'll come on to who the product is going to be available for and how you can upgrade in a moment. But if you're an OnDMARC customer, you can upgrade and use Radar. But if you're a certificates or an ASM or a brand trust customer, then it's going to be available for you as well. Okay, so if I open up the window, I can maximize. I can actually go through, click on new chat, and I can start to ask different types of questions. And importantly, Radar actually prompts you. It gives you some information about questions that you might want to ask. Again, this is all in natural language. This is all using the language that we all use to communicate with each other. Some suggested questions here, but I can ask other questions as well. There's no limitation to the questions that can actually be answered. So let's say I do want to ask what the security posture of a particular domain is and use one of those pre-canned questions. Let's say I want to check the security posture of redsift.com. Okay, then I can ask. Radar is going to look at specifically what I'm asking it. It's then going to call the appropriate playbooks. It's going to explain every single step that's actually taken. So you can see in this case, there are 4 sets of checks that are going to happen: DNS security evaluations, web server checks, web security evaluation, and mail server checks. Steps through step by step, using, in a number of these cases, the tools that you're familiar with in Red Sift already. We're using the same user interface. We're using that red, amber, green system to tell you about the critical issues that you need to know about. But importantly, we're telling you about what you've done well. Okay? And that's really, really important to you. There's no restriction here to the type of public asset that you can ask questions about. So you may want to ask, is a certificate expired? You may want to ask when a domain is due to expire, you might want to ask about a specific web configuration. It doesn't matter what you're asking, Radar will walk you through those checks. Okay, it will tell you exactly what it is doing and tell you whether it is good, bad, and what information you need to be able to triage any misconfiguration that takes place. Now, this is a really exciting bit, and this is where I'll bring Zachary back in a moment. But Radar also has a built-in email analyzer. So those that are on DMARC customers already will already be familiar with our Investigate tool. Our Investigate tool helps our customers to understand the configuration of their email sending sources by actually sending an email into an on-DMARC inbox, which will analyze it. And we've built on that expertise, and we've actually taken it a bit further. Zachary, would you like to explain a little bit about how you actually used the email analyzer within Red Sift Radar to save your organization $4,000?
Yeah, thanks, Billy. So we have an AR and an AP department, accounts payable, accounts receivable department. Sometimes we get phishing emails from, Joe Schmo, and we might need to look into that. In this case, we had an unusual conversation between a member of our AP team and someone who was pretending to be the president of our company. Basically, what happened is they were spoofing our domain. And do you want me to go into a little bit of how I used Radar for this?
That would be great.
Okay.
Just talk through the steps. Absolutely.
So normally, I would have had to look at the header. I would have had to figure out all this information to really understand where it was coming from and if it was actually coming from my domain. I would have to do kind of a check in Microsoft's portal to see if I could see where this email was coming from, if it ever crossed our connector. I reached out to a member of the Red Sift team to say, what do you think about this? And they basically said, try Radar. Forwarded it to the send email to a Radar, and that's what I did, basically. It made a complete report of all the information that I needed to understand that this invoice that was being sent between the spoofed address and our AP AR team was spoofed. It basically came from an external compromised mailbox, which it confirmed with an IP address check that showed that it wasn't coming across our connector at all, and that the username was not matching what the current president of our company's email inbox looked like. So basically, instead of having to do all this manually and maybe not being able to catch it in time before someone actually paid it, because the president asked them to pay it, I was able to throw this into Radar, gave me the whole breakdown about where it's coming from. It also told me when the domain was created, which let me know that the fake accounts payable account that was sending the message to that user was registered 2 days prior. So basically, it provided us all the tools we needed to spot an invoice and get it out of our pool of needed to be paid. Ingenious, quite honestly. I was not expecting it to perform like that, and it performed excellent. I highly recommend it.
That's what we love to hear. That's exactly the type of feedback, and I'm going to demonstrate how easy it is to do that, and how easy it was for you to actually forward an email and actually understand it. So in typical one I prepared earlier fashion, so a couple of minutes ago, just while you were talking, I decided, let me check potentially suspicious email that I've just received into my inbox. So you can see clearly here, this is the email address that you would forward a suspicious email to. If I click into the Radar inbox here, where the email is located, I can click on the unread email, so it just looks like a typical inbox. And when I actually click on the email, there's 4 questions now that I can ask. I can carry out a full email analysis. I can do a header analysis on its own. I can actually investigate the configuration of the email has actually been sent with, or I can go and do an assessment of the IP address that the email has been sent from. So exactly the same way as the integration with an on-DMARC work, the questions are there for me to just pick from. So Zachary, you did the email analysis, you asked the question, analyze the content of this email. Is this a phishing email? You can see at the bottom, it's pre-populated the question. Okay, I can simply hit enter and it's going to start doing the analysis live. It explains all the different steps it's taking. This is really important to me in Radar, actually, that the steps that are taken are explained, because it helps with education, it helps with upskilling, it helps to address that skills gap and empowers people and helps people become more confident in helping their organisation to defend themselves against this type of phishing email. So step 1, sender and recipient verification. I have forwarded this email from my Red Sift email address. Okay, so it's sending from me, and it claimed to be forwarded from my personal email address. Okay, then it's going to look at the content. Okay, it's going to look at the wording that's used in the email, okay, and tell me, could this actually be a problem? So it explains the email content as a common phishing scenario where the sender is in a desperate situation, okay. In this case, I had said in the email, oh, I've lost my wallet, I've lost my phone, and I was actually in Italy, okay, and urgently requested some money. Now, funnily enough, the email address within the content looked a bit dodgy. It was this person called Rahul that was actually asking for money here, and it was asking me to reply to not the email address that was sent from, but Rahul@Powar.Scot instead. And actually, Radar is telling me this is suspicious because it's different from the initial email, the initial sender's email domain. It then works through the technical indicators. Okay, this is a forwarded email from my inbox, so this all checks out. This is what you would expect to see. But within the email itself, it's looking at the links and the content again within the email. And actually, in this case, I had, and you would be able to see it within the JSON itself, that I've included a PayPal link. Okay, I've been requesting money. So it's telling me, look, this is dodgy. This is normally something that people will do if they are attempting to phish the organisation. And then finally, it's looking again at the language, the content of the email to create a sense of urgency and then to give a summary. So very quickly, again, this is the playbooks are designed to make these steps joined up so that you don't have to do all of these different steps. You don't have to go and run individual checks against the configuration. You don't have to find a different tool that looks at the language. In one pane of glass, you can simply forward the email that you think is suspicious, okay, and Radar will do all the hard work for you. Zachary, you mentioned that there would have been manual tools and different ways of doing this. How would you have typically done this, and how long do you think it might have taken you to try and understand if the email you're talking about was fraudulent? And actually, do you think you would have been able to identify if it was fraudulent or not without using Radar?
So my usual cadence is to understand the context of the email first. So the content analysis part of Radar already blows that out of the water. So I would previously have to look through the email address to see if there was exchanges between them and a member of our internal group, or if it was from them to an outside group, which then translated to someone inside of our domain. And it would also involve finding the header information, because it has to end up in our inboxes at some point. So it has to cross a threshold at some point. So overall, right now, we're already at about 10 minutes probably of tracking down where this message came from, who sent it, whose email inbox it ended up into, if anyone was added, if anyone was BCC'd, going into Microsoft Admin Center, which is what we use particularly, to see who sent this email, when it was sent, and trying to see if we can get any information out of that. Now we're at 15 minutes. It would then cross over to investigation. I would ask the user to forward me the email so I can look at the header information. If not, go to their desk and find the header information, because I am in the office. So you're adding another 5-10 minutes. And basically my end result would be, hey, this email it was sending from a domain that we usually don't get emails from. It's sending to a lookalike address, which is coming from someone who is pretending to be our president. And it's asking for a sum of money that ended up getting forwarded to a member in finance. So after all is said and done, this could be a 30-minute exchange depending on who was involved and who needs to remediate the issue, making sure that we didn't send the money, making sure that people didn't fall for it in any other way previously. So there's a lot of remediation steps that happen with it. With Radar, I mean, you just forward the email, and once it crosses that inbox barrier, the servers, it's in there, and you can get all that information without doing that check. You then have to basically make sure that the domain it was coming from was not registered 2 days ago, which in this case it was. So you're going to different websites. You're making sure that you're doing your due diligence to make sure that you're not cutting off money from a legitimate, partner that you're working with. So it does take a lot of guesswork. It does take a lot of personal face-to-face time with users. You pop an email in there, you confirm. If you need to do extra confirmation that they weren't expecting an invoice, you do that after the fact, but you already cut out 20 minutes of middlemen, right away.
I think we should be updating our tagline to say 20x after that, rather than 10x in that case. So
I will say, getting people to, they'll send you a phishing email, but they won't be available afterwards right away. And it's like, you got to solve this problem, but they're not available. So, you might be able to get away with 15x.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I mean, what I love about that as well is, as the solutions person here, I can explain, what we think the benefits of Radar are. We can, and I've shown that through the demo. I've shown how we can help our customers move to enforcement and stay at enforcement very quickly, and stay there, as I mentioned, by solving and being alerted to misconfigurations and any potential problems with email sending sources, using that very seamless combination of processes that are embedded, and also adding in our expert knowledge. So it's faster, it's better, it helps our customers more than ever before. But so quickly into a beta, to find a customer saving $4,000 like you, Zachary, far more quicker than they were able to do before, or even at all, is what I love, and that's why I'm really, really excited about both Radar through the on-dmark interface, but also the chat interface, and in particular the different email analysis tools that are embedded and built in. It gives people access to that expert level knowledge that helps you to stop those type of fraudulent activities happening quicker than you've ever been able to actually do before. We're running out of time. I'm going to check the questions in a bit in a little second, just to see what else has been coming through. But as well as the real world impact that we've been talking about with Zachary, the use cases that he's mentioned, we've had a number of customers from global brands who've given us some super feedback during the process. Our customers have been able to improve operational efficiency. They've been able to stop fraud from happening. They've been able to empower and upskill their teams. They've been able to take back control of their digital reputation. Even someone said they were able to build bridges across teams. So not just empower their own teams, but help other teams understand what has been going on. You can see there in particular, we've got some fantastic feedback. I use Radar now extensively in my day-to-day work. From Signature Discovery, a biotech firm, it's a one-stop shop. Exactly what you said, Zachary. It's everything. This is a single pane of glass. It gives you access to all these tools. Radar is now and will be in the future an important tool for us from our friends at GC Foods. So our beta has went really well. We've taken all that amazing feedback and built it into the platform. Red Sift is delighted that not only were they able to try out the product, but they were able to meet business goals using Radar. If there's anyone from the early beta on the call, other than Zachary again, thank you. But otherwise, thank you to all our beta customers. We couldn't have done it without you. Ultimately, for our customers, what this has come down to, our early adopters in the beta were able to find and fix security issues at least 10 times faster than through their existing methods. They were able to do this because of the real-time view of their digital estate that Radar gives them. Okay, it gives them complete visibility about misconfigurations in a faster way, and it helps them to resolve the questions using that conversation-based approach that I was able to demonstrate. There's no complex queries anymore. You don't need to understand Elastic syntax, right, to be able to find the answers to questions. With Radar, the conversational approach means you just are able to ask questions to allow you to proactively defend your estate through an analysis of vast amounts of data and exposure. So now I know the question on everyone's lips is, how do you get access to Radar? Okay, great news. If you are already an existing on DMARC, brand trust, ASM or certificates, and that's including hardenized customers, then the upgrade is available to you now, okay? Depending on what plan you have, you will have a certain number of seats. If you're an Essentials customer, you will have Radar through the on DMARC integration that I showed. So the buttons that I demonstrated, able to ask those questions from within the on DMARC interface is available to you now. If you're on an enterprise plan, okay, the upgrade will be 4 Radar seats. And if you're on a Premier plan with us, then you will have 8 Radar seats available to us. And you can upgrade and add more seats with us at any time. Okay, if you want to add more seats, please do get in touch with your customer success manager and they will be able to help you out. And additional seats are also available to be added to those that are on the Essentials plan. In terms of rollout, the rollout has started to our existing customer, and your customer success management team will be in touch with you over the next week or so to let you know about next steps and how your upgrade, if you qualify, will actually take place. If you would like further information about that process, please do get in touch with your CSM team. If we have got anyone on the call that's not an existing customer and would like to sign up, please go to redsift.com/radar to request an account, and our sales team will be in touch with you. So we are at 17:59 UK time, so we have got 1 minute to go. I think my timing has been more or less spot on. I am just now going to jump over and check the questions that we actually have. So a good question from Ernie. What happens to the suspect email? How long is that email retained? Rahul, is that a question that you could pick up?
Yeah, sure. So we have policies for the infrastructure that we use for our investigate emails. And those policies are to some extent configurable. So depending on what you would currently do with investigate, Radar inherits the same policy. But yes, we don't retain the data for any extended period of time. And of course, the sandboxes that we have that are quite strict about processing any data for a particular customer, those are explicitly the same sandboxes that exist for Radar. So, just to put everyone's mind at ease, we don't take any of the information that you would be using in the conversation with the Radar application, whether that's email or your free-form conversations with it, and it doesn't really go anywhere. So they're not used for future training. They're not used for anything beyond the specific ask that you have asked for that period of time. The specific time for the retention should be on the FAQ, which we'll be releasing shortly with Radar general availability.
And we've got another question from Andre. Andre, thank you very much for the question. So this will be aimed at our partners who have joined us. Thank you very much for coming on to the session tonight. So what is the target market vertical company size that we think Radar is going to be suitable for? I would go back to what I've been saying throughout the call, particularly at the beginning there, and how the release of Radar ties into to our mission. We want to make cybersecurity tools available to everyone. We want to help use it, Radar in particular, to help people to solve these complex problems. So it can be used by any of our customers, no matter what their technical knowledge is. But in particular, where do we see it landing? Look, there's no doubt at all that security teams are under significant resourcing. IT or security teams don't have enough resourcing. Zachary mentioned it earlier on. It's, you don't have enough time to do everything. You don't have time to firefight and be proactive. So for me, I think if customers, if you feel like you're struggling with time, that you need more time in the day, you don't have enough resources to answer the questions that you have or learn more about how to defend your estate, then Radar is the actual choice for you. It's going to be an incredibly valuable tool. Rahul, would you add anything to that? What would you think in terms of the target market?
Yeah, exactly. Resource-strapped security teams who are working with a complex estate naturally could use the assist of a skilled up LLM, which is basically where we built this. So, mid-sized to large organizations, or even smaller organizations that are actually quite sophisticated. Effectively, they have a lot of digital assets. They lead with a lot of phishing. They have a reasonably large estate that they want to manage this from. We just built this to create more leverage for the existing capacity.
Thank you. Super. So we are over time. Thanks for those that stayed, and apologies for running a little bit over. First of all, a massive thanks to Zachary for taking the time out to do this. We know it's a big ask, and we're very, very grateful, but I'm even more grateful that you were able to see benefit from the Radar beta. So thank you so much indeed for that. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Rahul, pleasure. Rahul, thank you very much for joining us as well. Really, really much appreciated, and thank you very much to all the audience. Do please get in touch if you're an existing customer. If you have any questions, get in touch with your customer success team, and they'll be more than happy to help. For new customers, go to redsift.com, and for our partners, do get in touch with your contacts, and we will be more than delighted to help. Enjoy the rest of your morning, the rest of your afternoon, or the rest of your evening. Thank you very much indeed, everyone.